I am so happy that you're able to join us for this extended interview. Make sure to visit theoffbeatlife.com. Again, that's theoffbeatlife.com to get more killer resources. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this extended interview with Danny Kimm. Hey Danny.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm great. How are you today?
Doing awesome. Doing really great.
So Danny is an incredible consultant, a speaker, and he is going to be giving us a lot of tips and tricks today. Danny, before we get into your topic, which is how to find your purpose in transition, can you give us a little background about you and why you live an offbeat life?
Sure. So I am a keynote speaker, organizational consultant, and a cyborg psychologist. And what I do is I basically help people gain clarity and alignment and take action, find the courage to take action. And some of you might be thinking, what's the cyborg psychologist? I love studying the interaction and intersection between technology and human beings. I'm specifically interested in how smartphones either add or detract from human connection and creativity. And so it's fun for me to really explore that, especially in the season that we live in right now.
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic, and make sure to listen to the full interview with Danny where he shares more about that topic as well. So, Danny, you have written a book called Influx, and you're talking about finding your purpose in transition, and there's the three things that you are mostly about. The first thing is make space. How are we able to do that, and how can we become more comfortable and okay with making space in our life?
Absolutely. I think when we're in flux and when we're in transition, we don't like it because it feels uncomfortable. And so the first practice of being in flux and finding purpose in transition is to become okay with that space and to make space in order to become intentional with what the real challenge is for you. And so one of the things that I recommend is that people need to identify why they want to go into transition and what transitions they currently are in. Friction is good in life, actually. A lot of people say we want to have no friction life or we want to have a frictionless experience. That's fine, but honestly, without friction, you don't move anywhere. If you think about that, like you need friction to be able to travel. The shoes that we wear to the tires on our cars, friction actually is healthy, the right amount. Now, too much friction will create burnout. So the first kind of example of making space is identifying what areas of my life am I currently in transition, and am I intentional with the transitions I'm about to make? Meaning, am I just trying to make a move, a career change because I'm unhappy with my job, or is it because that there's some other reasons why I'm frustrated and that I'm trying to create transition?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that make us move or transition to other things. And that is a really good question to ask yourself, because if you're just leaving your job because you hate it, you may go to another job that you're also going to hate. So it's going to be going back to the same thing. And we definitely don't want to do that. And I love that you mentioned getting burnt out when too much friction happens, because that can definitely happen. I mean, I have definitely experienced that. And I think that happened to me a few weeks ago, and I had to step back and remind myself to take time to like you said, to make space for yourself and for the people around you in your life, because it can get debilitating, and also it really affects the relationships that you have with yourself and with other people.
And to that point, I mean, especially for your listeners who are doing a lot more freelance work or consulting or coaching like I do, or writing, like, we are our greatest product, meaning when we're unhealthy, our product is unhealthy. And so taking care of yourself, self-care, and becoming okay with that space is incredibly important. I'm an extreme extrovert, but my weekends, I disconnect almost completely. I make no agenda, no plans. I make no emails. I don't respond to things because I know that that's what I need to recharge. I make space on a weekly in order to be able to reconnect with what matters most and to be able to be my best self on Monday morning.
I love that idea of really disconnecting and having that space for yourself and people that you love as well. And sometimes you can get really caught up, especially if you are doing something that you're extremely passionate about. And
Right.
it can take up your whole life. I don't think it's talked about enough. I mean, we talk a lot about finding your purpose and doing this and that, but when you are aligning, and we talked about this, aligning your talent with your purpose, and you're so into what you're doing and you're loving everything about it, then in a lot of ways too, unless you step back, it can take up your whole entire life. And that becomes a problem in itself. Another thing that you talk about in your book is getting together and finding the right community.
I think that something that's so critical when you're in transition is to not do it alone. I think the reason why people don't like to talk about their transitions, whether it's like buying a house or getting married or, finding some uncomfortable moments, is because we like the completion of things. It's why we celebrate graduations. It's why we celebrate birthdays. It's why we celebrate retirement, because there's like a marker, and that's good. But what about every single step that gets you to your degree, or every single step that gets you to the wedding date, or every single step that gets you to the retirement? All of that is important as well. And so I think in order to help you get there, the key in that step is to be able to have a community, or a tribe, I call it, that comes around you and that can walk with you in those moments of transition. I think it's so easy for us to kind of think we have to do it alone, just because it's easier that way, or we're ashamed of our transitions that we're in. But the reality is about who's in your tribe, who's in your corner, who is going to be able to support you in it. Because the reality is transition has ups and downs. It's not always easy. You don't always get straight A's, right? It's just because you're going to get married doesn't mean you're not going to have any challenges with your fiance, right? Just because you retire doesn't mean there are challenges within your workspace. So finding your tribe, knowing who are the people that can support you all along the way is extremely important in the middle of transition.
Yeah, there's always challenges that you're going to come up with. And I've spoken to a lot of different people. And one of the things that's really crucial to their success, they say, is having that community and a mastermind group that will allow you to help each other grow. And it's not something competitive. It's actually just helping each other out in whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's your personal life, your career. And it really helps to have a sounding board to be able to talk to you, and they have an idea of what you're going through as well.
I think that's important, especially for people who are living an offbeat life. Just the reality is that they need people. You can't live off the grid and be by yourself. You have to be even more intentional, because proximity no longer determines your relationship. It's about technology, harnessing that, which is kind of fun, that we can have, Skype or opportunities like that. So intentional with that. Not the false sense of community, which social media can offer, but real community. People who are in your corner that you can actually share real life stuff, not just like the FOMO pictures that we put online of places we've been to. Honestly, I mean, can we become even more real and vulnerable with one another?
And this is the good way of actually using technology, is to do it in a way where we can have real human connection, and not just with FOMO, you're talking about fear of missing out. I talk to people a lot about this, and they're talking about how they grow social media and this and that. And I said, honestly, for me, what I get out of this is meeting friends through social media and having real life friendships from social media. So if you are going to use social media, do it in a way where you're actually creating real relationships with people, instead of just being upset that someone else is traveling and you're not, or they seem like they're living a perfect life, which no one does. I dare someone to tell me that they have a perfect life right now. So another thing that you talk about in your book is being okay with silence. Now, what does that mean, Danny?
So as a musician, one of the things I'll never forget learning in my early days of classical violin was that my instructor would say, Danny, the right note at the wrong time is the wrong note. So what that means is that if I play something when there's supposed to be a space, especially in like orchestral music, it's the wrong note. And just because you have the right note doesn't mean it's always played at the right time. In music, silence is actually a note. There's space, there's a pause, there's a place to breathe. And I think oftentimes in transition, we get so inoculated and addicted to momentum that we actually don't take a moment to be silent and to pause and to reflect. We think that movement is progress when actually it might be movement in the wrong direction, or it might be movement in the wrong areas. And so in transition, the question you want to ask yourself is, where are you taking intentional pauses to reflect, to see if you're aligned with your vision and your values and your strengths and your passion? There's this great quote by Jeff Goins. He says, "A life filled with movement, with constant motion and no rest stops isn't life at all. It's tourism." And I think, especially for your listeners, if you want to live a life that's meaningful and intentional, that's disconnected from maybe a location, we can't live lives as tourists. We have to be intentional with our pauses and to be able to sit and to think and to reflect and to be present with our circumstances and to be okay with that silence, knowing that transition takes some time.
Yeah, that's so powerful what you just said, Danny. It's especially here, we're both living in big cities, and a lot of people, it's hard for us to take the time to reflect and to pause and to stop. And you feel lazy, or you feel like you're not doing enough when you're doing that. In the meantime, you are burning yourself out because you have to keep going. And in a lot of ways, we really have to pause and really reflect on the things, our actions daily, and if it's really leading us to where we want to be, instead of just going just to keep moving. So that is a really powerful statement that you made. And I am so excited to share your book with all of my listeners. So if they want to find your book, Danny, where can they go?
Yeah, Amazon is a great place. So just look up In Flux, Finding Purpose in Transition. And they can look up my author named Danny Kimm with 2 M's. And then also on my website, I do have some links there, and also social media. I love to connect on Instagram. That's kind of my main platform, or LinkedIn.
And if they want to find you, where can they find you?
Instagram, Danny Kimm with 2 M's, LinkedIn, Twitter as well. And then they can shoot me an email. If you guys are interested, visit my website at dannykimm.com. And find me there. Shoot me an email. I'll be happy to respond and connect.
Thank you so much, Danny. You're so much fun to talk to. So if my listeners want to talk to you, they definitely should, because you're really fun.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I hope you enjoyed this extended interview with Danny. Make sure to visit theoffbeatlife.com. Again, that's theoffbeatlife.com to get the full interview with Danny, where he shares how to align your passions with your talents to find your purpose. Hey, Offbeat family, I really appreciate you listening to this episode. I would love to hear more from you and what you think of the podcast. Suggestions on guests, topics we can discuss, or maybe you just want to be friends. Why don't we chat some more on Facebook at The OB Life, or send me a message at hello@theoffbeatlife.com. I can't wait to hear from you.